Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Modern Business Operation. My name is Sagi. I'm the CEO and founder of Tonkin. And today I have the pleasure of hosting Nico Bac. Hey, Nico. Good to have
Hi,
you.
hi, Ali. Great to see you.
Well, Nico, you're the founder of Digital Procurement Now. And before that, you led S2P in massive companies like Procter Gamble. Thank you for joining. Maybe you can share a little bit about your background and how did you get to start your own um, specialized firm for digital procurement?
Yeah, yeah, great. So, great to be here, Sagi. I have a long career in procurement. So I started in procurement in 2000, and did many different categories, developing sourcing teams, working in the various different regions. So I worked in Asia for a bit, but mostly in Europe. Yeah, Procter Gamble, obviously American company. So I've been to the US probably more than 50 times, to wonderful Cincinnati. Yes, my last job was really kind of head of tail spend. So indirect tail spend globally, which is a very notoriously difficult spend area. I think it's kind of one of those wicked problems that are hard to solve. And we had some plans to outsource the tail spend to a service provider, and we're kind of quite far down the road. Failed pretty badly, and decided that instead of throwing more people at the problem, we should actually throw some technology at the problem. So with that, we went into the market to understand what source to pay platforms were out there, and it was 2015, so pretty like 9 years ago, right? So there were a few less procurement technology startups, and I don't think Tonkin was around, for example. But yeah, so we then looked at Ariba, looked at Coupa, looked at a few others, and then did a whole kind of transformation, mainly with the Coupa technology. So pretty successful with that. And I kind of, in the middle of COVID, I was like, well, I think I should think about what's next, right? Because working more than 20 years for one company, I should think about something else. So I decided to kind of resign and figure out what to do. And I always had this idea in the back of my mind of starting my own business, becoming independent, a bit more freedom. And I thought the experience in digital procurement and transformation could really help other companies also kind of digitize procurement, transform procurement. So I started my own business called Digital Procurement Now. It's about going for 4 years now. It's advisory. It's helping companies understand, define the problem they're looking to solve, and figure out like a business case, and then help them with technology selection, and also with change management. Because I do think even if you have a good strategy, you select good technology, then it's not going to work on its own, right? You have to make sure your suppliers understand what you're looking to do, your business users understand what you're looking to do, and your buyers understand what you're looking to do, right? So there's like these three personas that I think you have to bring together, and that's been pretty exciting. And I've had clients across all industries, and in the Middle East, in Europe, in the US. It's a pretty global business already after just a couple of years.
Very good. Well, first of all, congrats on your success. It's exciting. It's exciting and challenging to start a business. So congrats for that. Well, funny enough, Tonkin what did exist in 2015. We just started though. And so maybe we start actually the conversation there. What do you like it feels like a lot of things happened in last decade in technology in general, in operation, in more specific, and even more specific in the procurement space. Um, how do you, how if you need to summarize it a little bit, like what do you think are the big shifts or trends or the before and after when you talk to your customers too? Because a lot of them, I'm sure, come to you and their mindset is stuck in 2015
Right.
in a way, the decade back,
Yeah.
and now they want to move to what's new. So how do you kind of think about that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would start in 2001, right? So if you think about technology in the procurement space, what's the first time technology really came into the procurement space, it was when free markets was kind of formed, and actually all the buyers in P&G at the time were trained by free markets on reverse auctioning, right? So we were told in 2001 that our jobs were going to change dramatically, and reverse auctions was going to be the way that the business would be allocated across the supply base, and things would be optimized, and the internet would do magical things for us, right? Now, I kind of was very, I didn't believe the story in 2001. And of course, I mean, with the dot-com bubble, etc., things fizzled out. But at that time, Ariba was worth more than General Motors in the stock market, right? Just to give you, and that's like, more than 20 years ago. Now, obviously, things kind of crashed down, and everybody forgot about reverse auctions and kind of until the tech really started to develop. And e-sourcing, sourcing optimization. So the tech started to develop, but the adoption was still an issue, right? So, for example, in 2016, when I started looking at e-sourcing in kind of what P&G was doing, only 2% of spend was being e-sourced, right? And 98% of spend was going through email and Excels and asking suppliers to quote. So it was not digital at all. And we decided in 2016 that was not good enough, right? We said, okay, we want the information we get from suppliers to come to us in a digital format in the platform. So then we can mine it for opportunity. We create like a great data foundation that we can apply AI to, et cetera, right? So that's what we started to do. We decided to switch the technology providers as well, because the tech that we had wasn't the most user-friendly tech. And I think if you select technology for procurement, number 1, 2, and 3 are user experience, right? It's like the same as when you buy real estate, it's location. Well, when it comes to procurement tech, it's user experience, right? So that's, I'm very opinionated on that one. I think if your procure tech doesn't deliver the results that you plan to have, you should switch your procure tech, right? I see so many companies that continue to use very old technology that has seen no innovation. People have been complaining 5+ years about the software, and still they look at, driving change management with existing software, right? And I mean, it's the definition of insanity, right? Is to do the same thing and expect a different result, right? You have to change the provider, I think, to stuff that actually works and is user-friendly. So yeah, and then of course, at the moment, everything is about AI and procurement. I mean, I've seen quite a few cycles on things that are hyped and then forgotten. And then kind of you have the slope of enlightenment, right? Where you base that productivity. So I think the Gartner hype cycle is very powerful, and you see this thing is also true for blockchain. It's true for AI. It's true for Gen AI, right? So, and I think you see that, and I think we should not be too excited when new technology comes up, and we should also not be too disappointed when the technology takes longer to bring to make you more productive, right? Because I don't think many companies see Gen AI as a way to be extremely more productive right now. I mean, they might. No, but there's the promise, right? So we should use it. We should train people. We should, but at the same time, we shouldn't have hyped it as much, and we should not be too disappointed, right? For some reason, when it comes to technology, we always think in extremes. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think it is very much. I have 2 small kids, under 5, and you see it at everything, every toy, every new shiny things they get, they immediately go into imaginary play. It's immediately like a rocket ship, and it's immediately like, superpowers and all that stuff. And I think people, I don't think we change as people. I think there's something magical about the potential of order of magnitude impacts. Anything that can feel like this is an order of magnitude better, faster, stronger, again, superpower to the way my kids describe it. Like, I think we gravitate towards it. I love that you went back to 2001. Like, I think it's a very, very interesting point, because even though the reverse auction might not fulfilled its original promise, you can claim it helped open up that field. That excitement brings investment. That investment brings, uh, innovators, and that innovation brings what the market actually need. And to me, that's kind of how I look at the existing cycle too. Is that you're right? You're completely right. Like, from that perspective, I think that a lot of it is overhyped, and sometimes it's over jump to conclusion too fast. When you look at a lot of the technologies in between, even in consumer market, which is easier sometimes to imagine, they all actually lived up to the hype, but it might be 15 years later, and it not might be the exact use case that was hyped 15
Right.
years ago, but the impact or the way it did change the world, if you want to go that way, well, like, is true. It did happen. It did, the impact is significant.
Hmm.
The impact of internet is just, and you can't even quantify it. It's just not the
Right.
same, not the same world. No one even, and it was hype back then too, but still people couldn't even imagine what it actually going to end up being, and how critical of a fabric of society is. They were stuck on this, on the use cases. And that's, I think, the push and pull. And I think you made a really good point about the change management of bad experience.
Hmm.
And because we're in that business too, of essentially saying, people not gonna follow bad experience.
Yeah.
Um, you know, you need to design experience that works, that is personalized for people. But I do think it's actually related, because I think same way that people are stuck with, kind of like get excited, but are kind of looking for the immediate use case, and then get disappointed when that specific,
Right.
use case is not fulfilled. I think people get attached to the investment they already made.
Yeah.
And so many times, like, taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture, beside yourself, right? Saying, why are they not following my process? Maybe my process is not. Maybe the tools I'm giving them is not good enough. Maybe it's also on them. Okay, like, that's an option, but it's not the only option. And gonna go about that. But I 100% agree. And I think we'll see that unfold. Maybe it will take another decade. I don't know.
No, yeah, and I mean, it's hard to predict how fast this technology goes through the cycle, right? So, Gen AI will go faster through the cycle than the internet did, right? Or the telephone line, or. But I think it's interesting to look at things in a slightly broader perspective than just the last 3 years, because I think you can't really extrapolate things. I think you should look at 10, 20, I think 20, 25 years when it comes to digital procurement, because that's really when things started to become kind of hyped, or when people started to understand that the internet is really going to change how procurement goes about doing their business. And I mean, the big thing in terms of what's obviously cloud computing is the big thing for procurement, right? Because now your procurement system is not your on-prem whatever. It shouldn't be, right? If it still is, you should change it. You should run procurement in the cloud, like the same as you run your CRM process into the cloud, right? So, I mean, that's the first decision that I think companies need to make, and say, well, let's forget about ERP for procurement. It just doesn't give you the user experience. It doesn't give you the connectivity that's required to get your suppliers to collaborate with you. So you go to the cloud, and you go, and then I think that it's like, well, which platform is the most innovative and the most user friendly to use, right? In terms of the friction that is caused by people having to use a system to get a purchase order created, right? And I've talked to many companies that have failed pretty badly trying to do that in ERP, right? And still today there's companies deciding to buy ERP to go and do procurement. And I'm like, well, I mean, sorry, but you should do your homework, right? Um, and it's definitely not designed for procurement.
Yeah, absolutely. And not definitely not designed for the end users of procurement, who are the
Right.
people that actually you're expecting to follow the process. If I do go back for a second, something you said, which I think is super interesting, you kind of mentioned that reverse auction back then was described as something that will change the way procurement is. You do your job. Procurement professionals, do their job. I think there's a lot of the same language right now with AI, but and I think if you look at the market of procurement, the fear of technology taking away job is quite obviously proven the opposite. The market just grew for the need of people that working in that role. But did it change? Is my question. When you look back into that before and after, like where did it change? That definition of the role of procurement before and after e-procurement.
I think, I'm from an organization where back, 50 years before I started, they had defined procurement to be a strategic function. Okay, so, and they expect certain things from suppliers, right? So, for example, supplier diversity is something that P&G sells most products to females, and they felt that the supply base should reflect the fact that they should be a reflection of the society, right? In terms of supplier ownership, minority supplier ownership, etc. Right? So I'm used to when I started in Procter Gamble in 2000, it was a strategic function. The buyers were leading the category. They were setting the sourcing strategy together with the business, and they were looking to create a competitive edge in how they bought, right? So I think from that point of view, what the business can expect from buyers, I don't think things have changed so much, right? Now, the ability for procurement to deliver an impact to the business has completely changed with the technology, right? And I think that on the direct side, ERP did magic for the direct procurement buyers, because you basically set up your pricing and the ordering would flow automatically based on inventory levels and stuff like that. So, but that magic for the indirect buyer has never been, until whatever, maybe 10 years ago, it was never possible for the indirect buyers, right? So P&G had a situation where 1,200 buyers, 600 were direct, 600 were indirect. The indirect buyers couldn't really control the spend. They could not really communicate with the end user about what deal to use or what supplier to use for what type of business, etc. So I think that the technology we have now and the procurement platforms that are out there, I think they have really changed the life for the indirect buyers, much more so than the direct buyers, because I think the direct buyer's life was already changed significantly when companies were rolling out their ERP systems, which kind of happened more than 20 years ago in many cases, right?
And where do you think that, just staying on the same line for a second, closing that point, where do you think the next biggest impact would be?
Yeah. I think I think buyers have to live with a lot of unstructured data, right? So, and if you ask a buyer, do you want more data to make the sourcing decision? They will often say, well, we can't handle more data because we already we have so many requirements, financial health, conflict minerals, child labor, imports, OFAC requirements. Then this country's on the blacklist, then that country's on the blacklist. So the big thing for me, and I think that first is you move to the cloud, then the next thing is big data and small data, right? Is you have small data, and I think most companies have a spend cube. They know, who buys what from who, right? What the categories are. So I think they've solved this often, 5, 10, 15 years ago, but they haven't combined it with the big data that's available on the internet, right? So they don't have maybe the data structures that allows you to have a, financial health, like whatever credit safe score applied to all the suppliers they have in the mix. Because if there's another crisis like we had in 2007, with the financial health and the banking, etc. I mean, I had 20% of my supply base went into bankruptcy. Okay. And
Wow. Yeah.
that was contract manufacturing. So basically, you don't have Lenore or Pantene on the shelf because your contractor is not able to produce. And so, half my team was managing bankruptcies, which
Wow.
in hindsight, if you would have good data and you would know which suppliers would be highly leveraged or, not paying their suppliers on time, etc., you could anticipate things much better, which we couldn't do at the time. So I think that's the next big thing for procurement folks is that, a lot of more data is brought together in a way where they can actually use it to make sure that the right sourcing decision is made for that business.
Yeah, that makes sense. You also mentioned that, you keep coming back to if your procurement system is not in the cloud, it's time to put it in the cloud. And you mentioned in the beginning, if folks are still struggling with making those changes and investing in technology. Maybe a few words on that. In the 4 years since you started this, your current venture, and in the last 2 years working with all these different clients, any immediate learnings into what initiatives doesn't work? How do you even start? If someone is listening to this and saying, "Oh my God, this is a lot of things that Nico says here I'm really relating to," right? But like, there's no way I'll be able to convince my boss or so where do you even go?
Yeah. Well, I think that the reason I started Digital Procurement Now is I want to empower procurement to take their destiny into their own hands, right? So nobody in procurement decided that ERP was the best way to run procurement on, right? It was IT that decided that for procurement. And it's a terrible decision that is pushed onto procurement, and we can't really, we struggle with that, right? So the whole thing for me is that procurement needs to understand what digital can mean for them. They need to go to DPW. They need to go and talk to technology providers like yourself, and there's many others out there to understand what's possible with technology. They need to define the problem they're trying to solve, and I think the problem that, that procurement is trying to solve is not really a procurement problem; it's a business problem, right? So the business is not getting the agility that they want, right? The business feels that procurement puts in all kinds of barriers and boundaries and requirements, etc., that slows the business down, right? So, and so we have to start with what does the business need, right? And the business needs high performing, agile suppliers. They need to be able to switch suppliers out when suppliers stop performing, bring new suppliers in, and we need to procurement needs to do the performance management, right, to make sure that these suppliers are delivering according to what was promised, etc. And so, procurement should, be empowered to basically own the business problem related to procurement and suppliers. And I think when, bold procurement people that are confident do that, and I know many of those, they will say, well, I'm going to decide what technology the business is going to be using for procurement. It's not going to be something that IT decides because it doesn't, it doesn't fit what the business needs from procurement.
I heard a quote: "A cook uses the knives that are already available in the kitchen. A chef brings their own knives." So I completely agree. Um,
That's that's a very, very nice one because I think we have too many cooks and not enough chefs.
exactly, exactly. That's exactly right. Well, with that notion, thank you for this great conversation. I like to always ask, on a personal level, was there any career advice or tip that you got, along the way that you feel worth paying forward?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's a nice question, right? So I'm a procurement guy, right? I've been in procurement for a long time. And I go back, one of the first jobs I had was buying packaging for the toothpaste business. So Crest toothpaste. I mean, you know, so I know a lot more about toothpaste tubes than 99.99% of the population. But anyway, my boss at the time gave me a job and said, okay, you're the regional buyer in Europe, but I want you to be the global buyer, right? I want you to figure out what we do in China, figure out if we have good value in the US, etc. And I was nervous. I was not sure if I could do a global job with only maybe 1.5 years of experience, right? And I'm not somebody that doubts their capability.
Yeah.
I'm kind of usually quite confident, right? But I was like, really, I mean, a global buyer on packaging. I mean, this is, and I had a talk with my boss and I wasn't sure if I could do it, right? And my boss said, yeah, you'll be fine. We will support you we help you and we coach you, etc. And I think that that to me was really a game changer because I wasn't sure myself. My boss said, yes, go for it. We help you out if it doesn't work. And I think that's the thing I would tell people, just go for it, right? Even if you don't know if you can do it, just go for it. And I mean, and be open about it and ask for help. And if things don't work the way you planned, the work, I think it's a much better choice than to say, oh, no, let me stay in my region. I only do this. It was one of the best jobs I ever had. Global packaging buying was so exciting. And I learned so much also how, different suppliers work in different regions. And we applied the best practices from Asia into the US. We brought the Indian supplier in. So pretty exciting stuff. And I think that's the best career advice kind of I got. And then I've used that with my team since then and said, hey, it's fine if you're not sure about it. I think you can do it. And I help you out when you need help. And I think then you can get really nice things achieved with the team. So
Brilliant. Well, Nico, thanks again. If folks want to talk to you about Digital Procurement Now or learn more, where can they find you?
yeah, so digitaldpnow.ai is the website. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So probably LinkedIn is the easiest way. I'm happy to help, build business cases. I mean, my job is really to help procurement understand the opportunity that technology is there, right? And I think the challenge is different in different companies, right? I was talking to a Japanese company this morning. They have tech. They don't like the tech. But yeah, so I mean, I'm going to spend some time with them in Japan in a couple of weeks, and we're going to figure out how to play it, right? How to get people comfortable with these significant changes. And as I said, it's not about procurement; it's about the business. So,
very good. Thank you so much, Nico. That was great.
thank you very much.